So for the past couple of weeks, I've been building a 1987 Dodge Ram Charger for a competition being put on by Onyx Off-Road. And the competition is a build challenge, and it's me against two other teams. Well, Holly's on my team too, but she's currently not here, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the other two teams are Nate and Dave building a Lexus, 80 series Lexus, and then you have Matt and Colt from Bleep and Jeep, and they are building a S10. We currently have 37 days till we have to get this finished and wrapped up, and Holly's only gonna be here for 20 of them. So in the last episode with the Ram Charger, I put new valve springs in, as well as a new cam, a new intake, just to kind of spice this motor up a little bit. To finish it off today, we're going to be putting a new distributor in, and we're going to be putting a throttle body fuel injection kit on it from Phytech. And I'm super excited because we're going to hear this thing start up today. Let's get to work. Alright, so with the fuel injection kit that I want to run on this, it actually has an optional timing for the engine. And so I have a new distributor here that will allow us to utilize that feature. Spent under 150 bucks for this. And for the computer, I think 1,000. So far in engine management, well, I got the motor for free, but we'll say $100 because I have to put some number on it, but it is a junk derby motor. So overall, we're like 1,200, 1,300 bucks into motor modifications. I guess if you include the headers, that was another 200. So $1,500 total for the engine mods. So we'll be putting this in. It's shiny, it's new, I like it. Just got to make sure that this first piston is at top dead center. Throw it in back here. Let's see here. Are you kidding me? This better fit. There it is. That sunk it in. Okay, that's probably good. All right. Doesn't look right still, but whatever. All right, onto the Phytech. So it doesn't look like much, but I've been getting all the wires and everything ran to the sensors that they need to go to. Wires ran to the inside of the cab for the computer. The next biggest issues that I've run into is hooking the throttle cable up to this unit. I'm gonna have to do some cutting and welding to the original bracket to get it to work right, as well as getting this O2 sensor into the exhaust where it goes. And that's gonna be a little tricky now that I have the exhaust clear down there. Wow. Should have done that before I started, I guess. We're gonna modify the throttle cable and get it working right. Let me show you what I did with the throttle linkage tower, I guess. I had to cut it apart and add about 1 inch, and this is what it looks like. Right in there. So I cut it, moved it, added about 1 inch, then I could hook it up right there, which will give me like a full range of what that gas pedal can do. We won't be leaving anything on the table. The next step is to take this O2 sensor and get it fitted to the exhaust somewhere. We're gonna go, there's a spot they recommend, and I think we can get to it. It's up in there though. It's gonna be a little tricky. But what that sensor does is it pretty much tells the computer if it's running too rich or too lean and to add more fuel and stuff like that. So now to struggle. Fresh off the griddle. We'll have to wait for that to cool down before we can install the O2 sensor, but glad that's in. What's next on our list? The cam, done. Steering, not done. Doubler, driveline, Phytech. Almost nothing checked off. Good to know. So I pulled a bunch of the accessories off the front of this motor again because there's something I want to do before it all goes back together, and that is hydro assist. What it is basically a hydraulic ram that assists in turning your tires. So we need to pull out the steering box and the power steering pump to modify them for what we need. I could just buy those, but that would go against my budget. And yeah, it's a lot cheaper to just do it myself. So I'll get those out and onto the table. All right, so I have the power steering pump and the steering box out, and I think both of them are pretty new. I mean, the steering box looks new. I know it's been replaced. It's not the original one. And I know I put this steering pump in with Holly before all of this. So that's good news. I'm gonna dig into the power steering pump first because it needs the least amount of work. I just wanna get it out of the way. There's a cricket in here. So one of the things you're going to want to do when you convert to like a hydro assist setup is run a little bit higher pressure with your steering box. Now this box style actually is restricted, and so we need to remove that restriction out of the back and overall up that oil pressure. I've never done it before, but I've read a lot of forums, talked to a lot of people. Let's get to it. All right, so off the back side of it, this is where the high pressure line comes out of this power steering pump. And I'm just gonna pull it out, and there should be washers stacked on the back of it. So, yeah. Spring loaded. All right, so we pulled this out. Some people say you can drill this hole out. A lot of people say don't though. So I'm not going to. Out that comes. All right, so there it is. We got to pull that nut off the top of that, and there's a little shim or washer. There's actually two of them under there, and got to get them pulled out. I'm gonna try to hold this. It does. Oh, looks like I can. Like I said, two, pulling them both off. There's been a lot of numbers thrown around at how much this increases your power steering box, but I believe it goes by like 200 PSI, each one of those washers, and the max is 1400 PSI. So yeah, it was at 1,000 before, now we're more. Put it all back together. All right, well, that was pretty quick. I think it went pretty well. I look forward to the results. We can now set it out of the way and get on to the more difficult job. All right, so pretty much you have two ports on the top. One is pressure and one is return. And essentially when you turn the steering wheel one way or the other, it tells this which way to direct the extra power from the power steering. So to run a hydro assist, we need to run extra lines from the power steering box into the ram. It needs to correspond with where the pressure is going into the box, whether it's turning it left or turning it right. If it's just pressure, then your wheels are going to be locked. So we need to add two more ports to the side. One of the ports is going to be pressure for turning right, and the other one's going to be pressure for turning left. And when they're not being used for pressure, they're the return line back to the power steering pump. So let's get into it, I guess. I'm gonna use Google for this. There's an awesome site called RAD Charger Central, and they tell me exactly where I need to drill these ports, as well as a whole bunch of other tips for this thing. So we'll be using them. First things first. Just gonna angle this up a little bit. I'm gonna remove this nut on the face of it here. That is not supposed to be broken, pretty sure. Where did that even come from? Then we're gonna drill a little pilot hole. Okay, so we are all the way through it. That is to this rag in there. Now we need to take this and tap that hole so that this thing can thread in. Time to tap it. I should have sent this to Bleepin' Jeep. So we have our plug in right here of the one we just did. The next one we need to do is right down here on this little ridge, apparently. There's a little milling hole where they had to, like, I guess go through the entire port. That flat spot there is where we're gonna be drilling. So let's get this second one going. It's pretty much straight in line with the other one. All right, so a bit of a tip is to dip your drill bit in grease. It does a pretty dang good job at keeping the shavings out of where it's not supposed to and just holding onto them. So it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And right now we can't get in there. Definitely don't want any droppings. All right, got my second hole drilled right there. It's time to tap it. This one's gonna be fun. This one's gonna be a little trickier. All right, I made a mess. That kind of goes with doing anything, right? So we got the power steering pump upgraded. We got the power steering box tapped and drilled. I got a big mess to clean up, so I'll see you in the morning. So we did the steering box, the power steering pump yesterday, and today I want to finish the wiring. That means the fuel pump and getting the heater hose routed, as well as the fuse box for this Phytech unit. Maybe we'll hear it fire up today. But I'm gonna get this heater hose on first, just so I know where I can route it, because I can route the wire anywhere else I want around it. Red is the only color they had at the parts store, so that's the color we're using. Gotta go from this brass fitting right here to this hole in the back. Should be pretty straightforward, literally. Whoever said this was 5/8 hose, I don't think it is. Okay. I don't have real cutters. Hose clamp. I guess that's close enough. Thanks to movie magic, you don't have to endure that. Yeah. There is a little fuse box with this thing, and it needs to be mounted somewhere, probably on the firewall. I guess it could go inside, but it looks waterproof, so. Let's see here. Right there looks really good. Yeah. Perfect. I like that. Fuel pump time. It should be the last thing we need before we have to start the engine, other than putting the radiator back on, but we don't really need the radiator to start it. So this setup here has the fuel filter and the fuel pump, but we need to mount it down in the frame rail down by the fuel tank. I'm a little bit lazy, so I'm just gonna pick up the whole RAM charger. And yeah, we'll have to figure out a mounting bracket, because I got cheap and I didn't buy one because of the budget. I knew I could build one for like really cheap, for free. I don't know how you price out how much it costs. But anyway, let's get this thing on there. So I'm thinking like right in that area. Fuel tank is back there. It runs up forward. So we need to build a bracket that holds the fuel pump. There's already one for the fuel filter, so we'll just kind of go off of that. See what we come up with. Okay, so I cut out these pieces on the Plas table. They should capture the fuel pump pretty well. I mean, right like that. I need to add another piece though in them for them to work properly. So I'll get them cleaned up and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. I bent some flat strap and welded those two pieces on. Probably a lot simpler ways to do this, but this is the way I'm gonna do it today. Right, so that's essentially what we made. Super quick and easy. Just gonna weld that to the inside of the frame and it should hold everything in there pretty good. Yeah, so I got the bracket welded in. I've got some studs here for the other bracket and I painted it gray, kind of a lighter color so that it's easier to see. So I think the next thing to do is drop the gas tank down a couple inches to access the pickup tube for the fuel tank so that we could just run a new line from it to the pump. That way we don't have to mess with any of the factory steel lines or anything like that. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just pretend like I do. This is bad. Yeah, this is really bad. Apparently I wasn't centered on it very good. Look at all that stuff up in there. That is nasty. A lot of foxtails. I didn't drive it there. But those are the lines in here. Right here, this is the one we want. Let's get all that stuff cleaned off though. The reason I don't want to drop the tank all the way out is because there's a lot of fittings and the filler neck and everything. It's all pretty old rubber, and yeah, I'd like to replace it, but it's not really in the budget and currently working just fine. So the only thing I'm trying to access is this main fuel line. I'll use the metal return fuel line from the system up front. Here we go. This is stuff I want to use. It's a AN style fuel line. Hopefully it holds up well. Enough. This bad boy goes on there. This bad boy goes on here. Everything else actually looks really good. Okay, so the tank is up. I have the fuel pump installed. Here's what it looks like with the hose ran to it. I put some rubber in there to isolate it. Nothing fancy, nothing special. There's not gonna be anybody under here. This looks really good though. I didn't do that. Fuel pump, fuel filter, fuel line. Looks really good. Ran all the way up in there. We'll have to tie it in better up into the fuel tank. This is the hot wire to the positive side of the fuel pump. I gotta run a negative cable. I'll just run it to one of these bolts over here, maybe even this one back here for a ground, and then just cut that hose and that will go up to the Phytech unit. So with all of the wires in this setup, I've actually been soldering all the connections together. So it's been a process. Not too difficult, just kind of tedious more than anything. I need to pull a little more off of that. Okay. And there it is, right there. All right, so before we can get this motor started, there's a couple things that I need to wait for to come in the mail. Some of my fuel fittings are only in a mock-up position. They're not suitable for actually flowing fuel. And so those should be coming shortly, but after that, everything should be ready to go to fire up. So I'll get back to you when those parts come in the mail. My parts finally came and we can actually get this motor started today. All that's left to do is to put oil in it. I'm gonna put some mufflers on just so it doesn't like blow our eardrums out, and I think one of the sensors needs it to actually function properly, and then we start it. Hook up a battery and go.
Of course, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. That should work.
Time to put oil in. Probably gonna be like somewhere around 5 quarts for this. It's really controversial to start an engine without water running through it, but I'm gonna do it for like a minute. Just gonna do it to see if everything is right. See if it will start.
And if it doesn't?
Then we gotta figure out what's wrong. Okay. Cool. Time to add power. Okay, now we go into here. Before we try to start it, we gotta set this thing up. Oh, oops. Ooh. Okay. All right. Fingers crossed. What is wrong? What am I forgetting? I just don't think there's enough juice in that battery.
Can you jump it from the jump box?
That sounds better. Everything's on now. Oh, now this is dead. We actually have to find a good battery somewhere. Alright, new battery time. Okay. Let's go. We know this is a good battery. It's like almost. This is clearly not working. We need to go get a real battery. Oh, hi, Hagen. I hope there's some gas in it. She works. Alright, so this battery was on sale and it's big. Beautiful. Ow.
I'm stupid.
It'll get you if you're not careful. Yeah. There we go. So it's taken us a while to get this thing started, I know, between the batteries, between troubleshooting the wires, but I think I figured it out. Between saving the presets in the computer for it to run properly, between the coil actually getting power to it properly, between the whole setup getting power to it, we got spark. We were 180 degrees off top dead center, so I flipped the distributor. Let's try. She runs!
She's stinky. That's what she is.
Yeah, she's got some learning to do, but woo! So I am super stoked for what we got done in today's video, but there's still a lot of work left to do if we're gonna get this thing on the road and done in time. But we need your help if we are gonna have a fighting chance at winning this thing. We need your vote. You can go to Onyx Off-Road and vote for us every single day. I have a link in the description. Thank you for your support. Thanks for your help. Thanks for watching.